Howdy everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today, we're talking about some essential money moves to make before quitting your job to help you secure the bag. It's no secret that the ongoing pandemic has caused people to pivot in their careers, whether by choice or due to necessity. Either way, this trend is expected to continue. In fact, Microsoft's 2021 Work Trend Index reports that over 40% of the global workforce is considering leaving their employer this year. As a result, I want to focus on 7 financial steps to take before you put in your 2 weeks notice. The first step is to understand your total compensation. Let's say we have Jennifer. She's a business analyst who makes about $24.04 an hour. What is her total annual compensation? Some of you may be tempted to pull out your calculators to compute the product of her hourly pay by the number of hours per week that she's working and the number of weeks per year. If you took that approach, then you'd get a total of approximately $50,000 per year. However, without knowing more about Jennifer's company, we can't actually calculate her total compensation. While Jennifer's base salary comprises the majority of her compensation, it's not the only thing to consider. She may have an additional 10% of earning potential from a performance-based bonus, commissions, or profit sharing. A 5% 401k match would give her an additional $2,500 a year. Then there's the decent healthcare coverage offered by her company, which adds to her bottom line. In addition, she has a wellness stipend that she uses towards her Headspace subscription and virtual fitness classes. Jennifer is also getting her MBA part-time and appreciates the fact that she can get over $5,000 of tuition covered by her employer annually. And then they also help her repay up to $2,000 a year for her undergraduate student loans. This means that her total compensation is nearly $20,000 more than her base salary. When evaluating an opportunity, whether it's one you already have or something new that has presented itself, you need to consider it holistically. Also take an inventory of the other perks you have with your current job. How many vacation days and company holidays are there? How much money are you saving from the employee discount? Which professional development resources like LinkedIn Learning or executive career counseling do you use? Try to quantify these where possible, but it's important to consider some more abstract things like working in a mission-driven environment or having awesome coworkers, because they still impact your experience at work. The first step was to help you quantify some of the things you gain by staying. Step 2 is to calculate what you have to lose if you walk away from your current company at this time. Depending on the nature of your role or the industry you work in, there could be significant costs associated with leaving a job early. You need to ask the question, will I owe any money if I leave now? Go through and list the financial compensation you have already received that is contingent upon your tenure. What are the specific terms? Do you forfeit your entire 401k match if you leave before 2 years, or just a portion of it? What is the vesting schedule for your restricted stock units, or RSUs? How long do you have to remain at the company after getting your degree if it was sponsored by your employer? Take the time to add everything up and make sure that you know how much you're potentially leaving on the table. Next, evaluate the timing of your switch so you can be really intentional and optimize it to keep the most money in your pocket. I'll use Jennifer as an example again, and let's assume that we've transported ourselves back to August 2020 and she's considering whether or not she should leave her job this year. Her current company is a small firm and they like to maximize their cash on hand. As a result, her 401k company match will not be paid out until 2021 during the first quarter. Remember that she has a $50,000 salary, and with a 5% 401k match, we're talking about $2,500 for the year. Both her current and prospective employer pay annual bonuses during the first quarter of the year. However, in order to be eligible for the bonus at the new company, she has to be an employee by September 30th. She also wants to take a week off during the holidays, but she's concerned that changing jobs could jeopardize that for her. Remember, it's not a zero-sum game. Some of the concerns Jennifer has can be negotiated. She can try to push for an earlier start date to meet the September 30th deadline for bonus eligibility. She can also try negotiating for a sign-on bonus if she's concerned about not getting the annual one. Alternatively, she can focus on paid time off or even unpaid to make sure that she'll be able to spend some extra time with her family at the end of the year. Now for step 3, I want you to remember that most benefits are use it or lose it, except for perhaps PTO, which often gets paid out when you leave. That being said, you should be sure to use your benefits before leaving. Some companies offer an annual stipend to use towards your personal fitness or wellness goals. Think about spending those funds before putting in your 2 weeks notice. A company I previously worked at had an employee recognition program which allowed you to receive points when you went above and beyond at your job. Those points were redeemable for prizes like electronics, home appliances, and even gift cards for various companies. Before I left, I made sure to spend all of them. If your company is going to pay for an expensive certification, particularly one that'll help make you more attractive to prospective employers, definitely take advantage of that. And then we have the flexible spending account, or FSA. So an FSA is a pre-tax healthcare spending account. You can contribute up to $2,750 to it every year, and the contributions come directly out of your paycheck. Some employers match your contributions, and at the end of the spending period for that year, any unused funds are forfeited to your employer, irrespective of whether you contributed that money or the employer did. But like I said, specific provisions vary by company, so this is something you would definitely want to check with your HR benefits coordinator about. COVID-friendly policies may impact these deadlines, but I'm just giving this as an example. I'm only speaking from my own experience. On the first day of the new year, I'm eligible to start spending the money that I'm contributing towards my FSA, and I sent the money for my FSA when I signed up for health insurance in the previous fall. Okay, and then at the end of the year, so the 31st of December, that would be my last day to spend money from the FSA for that year. And then 3 months after that would be the deadline for submitting all of my claims and paperwork to actually get reimbursed for whatever expenses I had that I did not use my FSA debit card to pay for. However, when I left the company during the year, the 31st of December was no longer my last day to spend money from my FSA. Instead, it was the day that I left. Let's say we're fast forwarding to the future, and I left in August 2021, then that would have been the last day that I could spend from the 2021 FSA that was sponsored by that particular employer. However, the reimbursement date in the following March remains the same. So if I didn't spend all the money before my last day at the old company, I lose out on whatever money is in that account. It gets forfeited to my employer, irrespective of whether it's funded from my sweat, blood, and tears or if it's a company match or something. So definitely that's something to be mindful of. I know that I've talked about using all of your benefits, but there are times when it might be appropriate to exercise some discretion. The first is when exploiting benefits could hamper your ability to return to the company. And this probably would be most relevant for a smaller company. If there's something that the company is paying for with the expectation that you're going to be present at the company for a while, maybe there's not an explicit agreement saying that if you leave before a particular amount of time that you have to pay that money back, but it's still sort of given with the expectation that you're going to be around for a while. Taking advantage of whatever benefit it is could be seen as like having been done in bad faith, or it can leave a sour taste in your supervisor's mouth that, if you wanted to return back later, the door would be closed. And you don't want to burn bridges, so that's something to think about. Also, think about the tax burden associated with your benefits. Obviously, I'm not a tax advisor, financial planner, or anything like that. So that's definitely something that you would want to work with a professional on. and probably consult with someone at your company about as well. Since we don't have universal healthcare in the United States, you'll want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. So for step 4, make sure that you have health insurance coverage. Affording medical emergencies, even when you do have comprehensive medical insurance, can be a huge burden, not to talk of when you experience a lapse in coverage. This data from the Kaiser Family Foundation shows that a lot of medical debt can even start with a simple doctor visit, which can get expensive without coverage. Medical debt can torpedo your finances, so try to get ahead of it by doing all you can to stay covered, even if you're a young person or you literally feel like you never get sick. Depending on the company, you may not be eligible for health insurance on day one. I've heard of some employers having as long as a 6-month waiting period before you qualify for coverage. If this happens, you have a few options. The first is getting insurance coverage through your parents if you're under the age of 26, courtesy of the Affordable Care Act. Sometimes people forget that this is still an option if they've gotten used to paying their own bills. But if you're fortunate enough to have parents that are insured, and also you're still in good terms with them, this is an excellent avenue to take. Speaking of the Affordable Care Act, another option you have is to get a plan through the Health Insurance Marketplace, aka healthcare.gov. They've got a bunch of different plan options, so take a look to see what fits you. Next, you have the option of spousal coverage for healthcare. Some companies even allow you to add a partner to your health insurance, even if you're not legally married, so this is something to consider. Lastly, you can hold on to the healthcare you had with your old employer. The Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1985, aka COBRA, allows you to continue health insurance coverage even after leaving your employer. From what I understand, COBRA plans can be kind of pricey, but it's still an option at your disposal. Step 5 is to make sure you update the contact information for all of your work-associated accounts that you may need after you move on. Take inventory of all the accounts you have and double check that they're associated with your personal email address and not your work email. This can include your 401k or even a brokerage account if you had a company stock benefit. Medical accounts like spending accounts and insurance could be associated with your work email, so make sure to update that as necessary. Finally, professional platforms like LinkedIn or industry memberships might use your work email, so be sure to change that in order to retain access to your accounts. Step 6 is to submit all of your reimbursement requests. If you're reimbursed for your monthly Wi-Fi or cell phone bill, be sure to submit that for your last month at the company. In the work from home environment, you may have been told that you could expense certain meals or equipment. Be sure that for situations where you had permission to do that you're taking advantage of that benefit. Additionally, you'll maybe want to check your bank statements to make sure that you didn't forget any things where you went out of pocket, but you're actually supposed to get reimbursed for it. And then also make sure to remove your corporate card from all of your accounts. So for instance, with me, my LinkedIn premium subscription was paid for by my department at work. So I had to make sure to take off my corporate card for my LinkedIn account. And depending on the policies at your company, you may even need to be the person to take the steps to make sure the card gets canceled. But you should definitely reference your employee handbook for any details here. All right, the 7th and final step is to build your emergency savings fund. Even if you're going directly from one position to another, unforeseen expenses could still arise. Depending on the payroll cycle at your new job, it's possible you could go up to 3 weeks without a paycheck. If the new role requires you to physically relocate, so many more expenses could pop up. By starting to build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, you make sure your finances won't skip a beat while you continue expanding your professional horizons. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in more content about topics like investing and generating passive income, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell.